forget about Markup entirely.
We thought they had coverage. They didn't. Same thing happened again. I'm paying for it as time goes on, I'm sure, but at least the employee was taken care of.
Yeah, when you guys are doing inspections, are you sending your sales reps up on the roof typically? Like how often are they actually up there on the roof versus just using a drone or looking from the ground?
Our guys, I mean, we really, really want to get on the roof. Obviously, I live in a real historic area, so a lot of big, tall, steep, old slate roofs, things like that, old metal roofs. It doesn't make sense to get up on top of those things. You're taking as much chance of damaging the roof as you are, doing a thorough inspection. So that's when we use drones. But your more typical 70s and newer home, a little bit easier to walk on. We're trying to get on those every time, do a thorough inspection. It gives us a better conversation at the kitchen table. We have actual photos. We're going through the photos with the customer, explaining what's going on. We're taking video, and we're literally talking while we're, walking through the inspection and explaining what we're seeing. The other part of the inspection that's big is the attic inspection. I think that gets missed a lot by people. But a thorough attic inspection is definitely key. You can kind of get a guess on how much plywood is going to need to be replaced. You can give the customer kind of a heads up on that. You can see a lot of problem areas from underneath that the customer may not know about, may not have dripped into the house yet, but the plywood is damp or shows, significant sign of moisture, things like that. So yeah, we try to get up on every one of them and get in every attic we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. For those just joining us, we're just going through our own questions right now. But if you guys have questions for us about anything regarding the roofing business, just put those into the Q&A at the bottom of Zoom or in the chat, and we will answer your questions because we'd love to answer y'all's questions. The question we just asked was just safety protocols for roofing projects, both inspection and during the project. In that same vein, Scott, because I mean, obviously you want to stay safe and not have injuries on the job site, but when they do occur, you need to have things in place to handle that. What kind of insurance policies do you have in place? Should a roofing contractor have in place and or be making sure their subs have in place?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have general liability for one. That's kind of protecting your customer as much as anything. So, it's protecting you. But let's say you're putting metal on and a piece of metal takes off blowing through the yard and hits their car, scratches it all to hell. That's where general liability comes in. It's not for your performance of work. So don't get that messed up. If it leaks after you install the roof, that is not what general liability insurance is for. That's not what that was made for. That is made for, in the instance, a bundle of shingles, falls off and lands on the hood of a car. So, that's what that's for. The other big one, though, is obviously workers' compensation. And we've had a couple claims throughout the years. Thank God we had it, because one of my guys actually fell. Good friend of mine, back when we were all installing our own roofs and building our own buildings and stuff, he fell and broke his back in 6 places, punctured lung. I mean, just near death, right? Like it was almost, he's walking and he's great now, but other than being paralyzed and dead, it was about as bad of an injury as you could have on a job site.
Right.
He was down for about a year, but thank God we had the workers' comp, because he did not have health insurance, and it was on the job site. It was a legitimate workers' comp claim, and it did affect my rates, but at the end of the day, it took care of the employee, and all those bills were paid. Everything was taken care of. I'm paying for it as time goes on, I'm sure, but at least the employee was taken care of.
Right. Yeah, that's what the insurance is there for. And if you hadn't had that insurance, then your friend would have basically been forced to sue you.
He would have sued the pants off of me, and he wouldn't have had a choice. And that's it. I mean, that's like bankruptcy. That's a bankruptcy situation. So yeah, it's a necessity. You have to have it.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe you just said this, do you make your subs have like workers' comp, or do you have workers' comp to cover them?
Yep, we get audited every single year. And once for us, it was after about $2 or $3 million worth of revenue that we were reporting. Um, we started getting yearly audits. Some states, I think, do it no matter what. I don't know what all those regulations are with audits, but we get it every single year, same time of year. And what they're looking for is any subcontractor you use, whether it's an electrician that you only paid $1,000 to go fix a receptacle or something on, any subcontractor you're paying money to, they want to see that sub, whether it's an insurance audit or a comp audit, they have the coverage for each or both of those things. If they don't, which I've been in this situation, the first year we got audited, I did not know that was a requirement. I didn't know. I thought that was their responsibility, right? It's not. It's yours. You are working them. You are responsible for their comp and their COI. So if you don't, then they just come back and find the shit out of you. And what they're basically doing is they take the payroll that you've paid this sub, and whatever the premium would have cost for them to have coverage, now you have to pay it with an additional fine included. So we had a guy we were working, and I had paid him over the course of the year, probably like 150 grand, a decent amount, right? As a sub, he had 3 or 4 guys, and we worked him every once in a while. And when I got hit on that audit, I ended up having to pay like $22,000 because he didn't have workers' comp, and it wouldn't have cost him $22,000 to cover them. It probably cost him 10 or 15 for the whole year. Right. But they find the crap out of you when they catch you doing that. So definitely one thing for us in ProLine that we use is the files tab. So we'll make contacts for all of our subs, suppliers, anybody we do business with. We make them as a contact, and then they have a files option, and we save their COI and their workers' comp to the file. And then in our Google Calendar, we'll put a reminder when those are to expire that we get a renewed one. So you don't want them running behind. We've ran into that too. They've lapsed in coverage. They didn't renew. We thought they had coverage. They didn't, and same thing happened again.
Yeah. We also have an expiration feature now for files. You can set an expiration. I didn't build it, so I don't know too much about it, but it's for that specific reason, so that you can.
Fantastic.
I believe there's actually like an email notification stuff that's linked to it, but at the very minimum, you can see whether or not a file has expired, which this is the primary use case for that.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's exactly what you need.
All right, we got a question here from Brandon. Brandon asks, how are your inspections with adjusters? How do you show them to get the total roof replacement, or do you have to argue on certain things?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't do a ton of insurance work, but what we try to do is, in Ohio, you have line of sight and color match laws. And so luckily, we do have a little bit of a fight when it comes to, some sort of storm damage. So like we'll try to go back to different laws, like line of sight, for instance. And then obviously you've got color match. So we'll try, if it's just one face that's bad, we'll use laws like manufacturer recommendation of overlapping felt over hips and ridges. Now we have to damage that next face to make the repair. That face is also going to have to be repaired. So we try to turn in that one face into a full roof replacement when it's needed. When that roof is 12, 15 years old, it's still got life left in it, but it's going to devalue the home only doing one slope of it. And I believe that's wrong. Like that's not what that customer's been paying insurance for. We won't really do that. We're not really even interested in fighting for the homeowner when it's a 30-year-old 3-tab roof that's got damage to one slope. Like, we'll let them kind of handle it. If they are able to figure it out and get the insurance company to cough up the money for it, doesn't matter to us. But I just see too many people taking advantage of the insurance companies. Not that I'm on the side of the insurance companies, but at the same time, there's a reason policies are getting so expensive and claims are just getting denied left and right. And it's because people just are taking these old, terrible condition roofs and turning a small little wind damage. The roof is 10 years past its life expectancy anyway. It should have already been replaced anyway, and somehow turning that into a full roof replacement. And the insurance company really shouldn't be paying a single dollar for that. That's not their problem. You have to maintain your home. You have to maintain a working condition of your home. If you're not doing that, then they should probably just drop your coverage anyway.
That's a hot take.
That's what I would do. If I was an insurance company, I'd tell you, get lost. Your home's in disrepair, and I'm not going to insure it anymore. I mean, that's got to be how it is. If not, then we end up in the situation we're in today, where everybody gets denied, and the only people that get any coverage at all are those that understand the loopholes and fight tooth and nail to get it. It shouldn't be a fight. It should be very black and white. If it's in working order but was damaged due to an act of God, insurance should take care of it. And if that's not the case, it was not in a good working order, it's really not it shouldn't be their problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the insurance companies do a ton of super shady things in general that are unjustifiable, but it's also like that doesn't then justify like at the end of the day, like they are a business and they should be able to do what they have to do to be a profitable business. Like otherwise you end up with the situations that you had, or they completely pull out of the state. There's, I believe, several carriers pulled completely out of California. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, but now it's coming back to screw the homeowners, because it's like, well, now they can't get home insurance, and there's a reason for home insurance. Like,
that's right.
But, yep. All right. All right. For everybody that's joined us recently. So this is Roofer2Roofer. We're here to answer your questions about the roofing business. So please put those into the chat or into the Q&A. We're just going through our questions right now until we get, any other questions. But Brandon, thank you so much for that question. All right. Here's a good one. What's the difference between markup and margin?
Oh man, I'm so stupid. Why you gonna ask me this question? It's not the same. I can promise you that, because I thought it was for a really long time, and it's not.
A lot of people do.
Yep, I was guilty of this. All right, so I'll explain it the best I can, then you can fix all my screw up. How's that sound?
Sounds good. We'll take a stab at it.
Yeah. So markup is taking your cost. So your cost is $10,000 for the job, and you're putting a markup on the job. So let's say it's 10% markup, just for easy math. Okay. Well, now that job's going to be $11,000 because it was 10 grand. You're taking 10% of that total, adding to the top.
Yeah.
Margin is your total, and how much of that total is your profit. So the problem that people run into is they think adding that 10% markup means that they're going to make 10% of the job. They think now they will make $1,000, but that's not 10% of 11,000. What is it? 9% or eight something.
Yeah, like 8.7 or something like that.
So you're only making 8.7% margin when you charged a 10% markup.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. The key is
it's 9%.
9%. Okay. So you literally lost 1% of profit. Yes, you made $1,000, but you did not make 10% profit. You made 9% profit. So it's people get lost in that because the goal is to hit certain margins. Like when you're running profit, P&Ls, all that stuff at the end of the year, whatever, at the end of the job, you're wanting to hit a certain margin on a job. And people are all the time confused, like, man, I'm charging enough money and we're busting these jobs out. We're doing really good. And we're not having change orders. We're not having, going to the store and buying more material. And it's all going good. But somehow I'm only making 22% gross profit, but I'm charging 30% markup. Well, that's about the math that works. So, we were doing it too. I think it's been a long time since we did the math on this. I think 35% gross profit is somewhere around like 54% markup, something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a big difference. It is a big difference.
Yeah.
Then and the bigger you go, like the higher percentage that your goal is, what 35, 40%, 45%. Once you get up into there, so your markup has to be 55, 60 plus percent, which it's the same amount.
Yeah.
But you're only charging 35% markup and you're bringing home 20% margin.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's literally, it's what I think you just said. That's 50% markup is only 33% profit.
Yes.
So it's like, it's a very wide difference.
Huge difference.
And I think I think, so it's important. It's not so, it's valuable to know the difference, but the important thing here is just to know that if you are a contractor and you're selling services, you need to only think about things in terms of margin and understand how to calculate margin. Markup is really it's a retail thing, like for physical services that they think in terms of markup. It makes more sense when you have like your costs and things are sitting on a shelf and you're reselling things. But when it comes to services, you got to be, you just always just completely understand what margin is and forget about markup entirely.
And the reason, AJ, you said, you made a great point. The retail business primarily works off markup. The service business works off margin. So just if you're in the roofing business, just get rid of markup. Don't even use it.
Well, you have to understand what it is still, so you would avoid it and not use it.
Right. Just don't use it in your quoting. Don't use it in your way you're figuring pricing. Get rid of that, and you start calculating with margin instead. But my father-in-law owns part businesses, auto parts, and they work strictly off markup. And the reason it works in retail is because different items, whether it's stuff they sell, let's say oil filters, they're shipping boxes of oil filters out of his store every day, right? Like they're selling them things by the hundreds. Well, his markup on that, on oil filters is very low, say 20% markup, very low. But let's say tools, screwdriver sets, socket sets, whatever that he sells out of there, he doesn't sell them very often. But his markup on those is 200%. So the way they work in retail is they still try to hit, that 30 to 40% gross profit margin. But because they can play with items that sell hotter than others, and they just separate the markup accordingly to where they end up meeting in the middle. So they're higher ticket items. Like I bought a car jack off of them. I get it at cost, obviously. They're like 200% margin. Or I'm sorry, 200% markup. So his margin on those is literally like, I don't know, 100%. I mean, it's very high. But on filters, he's making 8% profit margin. So they figure out how to make that work in the middle. And that's why when you're shopping, all the high markup stuff is on the end cap aisles. All the low markup stuff's out in the middle where you can't hardly get to it. Like that's how retail works. You don't use markup in service business.
Yep. That's right. I think I'm actually gonna like drop the margin calculation.
Was it 54 to 35%? Was that right? I think it's something like that.
Well, yeah, that's how much they compare, but it's, you gotta do, when you're applying margin, it's we might move on to another question, and I'll put it in the chat in a minute. But that's the thing, the calculation is not very intuitive, which is where so many people end up, because the markup calculation is super simple. It's just like, oh, I want to 50%, just multiply by
1.5.
1.5. And that was very simple, but it gets you in so much trouble because it's not, it doesn't actually get you the right thing. So
that's why you don't use that calculator. You just use a good quoting software like ProLine, and it figures it for you.
Right.
Just does it. That is when we got away from markup altogether.
Yep.
And man, we started making a whole lot more money too. I don't know why.
Yeah, Adam in the chat, divide by the inverse percent if you want. It is that, but I'm putting in a formula. I'm just making sure that I don't want it to be accidentally wrong and somebody copy it. So I'm just testing it to make sure that it's correct. You divide by the inverse percent. That is the fundamental concept. All right, let's move on to another question. I'll test this before I post it in the chat for margin, but we'll move on to another question here. If anybody has questions for us, please do put those in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, we're gonna keep going through our own. All right, next question here. Is paying for Angie leads worth it?
Not really. No. I've been running a test with them for since December, I think is when we first started this conversation.
Yeah.
We're finding success in non-paid ads. That's where our best success is at. Really working referral business, canvassing, neighborhood events, organic Facebook, SEO, all the non-paid ad models are where we see by far the most success. They are more work. They take more effort. It's not just hand them $1,000 a month and leads come in. Now I say that, and I personally know guys that have great success using Angie with ProLine, because the Angie lead comes in and ProLine quickly sends a speed to lead campaign message, text, hey, Scott with Rainstoppers Roofing, saw you just inquired about, looking for a roofing quote. Here's my booking link. See if we can get you scheduled for an inspection, whatever. And I have had some success with it. I just don't know that it's not been enough success that I'll renew it this December. Let me put it that way. I'd rather put that $1,000 towards bonusing my guys for bringing in their own referral leads or things like that. Like just working referrals harder. That's where we see by far the best business is. And obviously, ad agencies are always quick to tell you, well, you can only get so many referrals. Well, if you're not working your referrals hard, you're not going to see very many of them. But if you really put effort into getting those referrals and, promoting yourself on Facebook and having your previous customers help promote you on Facebook, things like that, really working that referral system. That's kind of where I think the time is better spent than money at some of these paid ad sources.
Oh.
Think of it this way. What would a right out of college student that's, trying to get into advertising or marketing, what would they cost? Would they cost you, let's say $4,000 a month? You could probably hire a decent person out of college, doesn't have a job yet, that understands Facebook, understands, networking well. And you put them in a position to manage your team, all your team's personal Facebook pages, or even your own business page, going to the local chamber events and all that stuff, going to all the neighborhood groups. you're going to see way more leads. I mean, that's 4 times what I'm paying for Angie now, and I bet I would see 10 times the amount of leads that are qualified.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I was curious to update on that. It's been a minute since we had talked about it.
Yeah, we see some. I mean, we've landed a job here or there, but it's not been great.
Yeah. I keep getting emails from them. Apparently they have changed their model from like less of a shared lead approach to more like the customer gets to pick you from a list, which is interesting.
Yeah,
It's a little bit different.
I haven't seen any change.
It's the same. Yeah.
I haven't seen any change because that's been going on for a month or two now.
Right.
But I haven't really seen any change.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Okay. I had posted for everyone here in the chat the formula for profit margin if anybody wants to see that. Just verified it. So Adam was correct. It's just the inverse of the percent. And so you can swap out that 0.3 for whatever profit margin you're trying to get to, and that's going to give you the correct price. Now, as like Scott, like you said, if you're using a good CRM quoting tool that it is set up correctly for margin, then this all gets done for you. So you just put in the profit margin you want, it just calculates it. Brandon asks, what is the major difference between ProLine CRM and AccuLynx CRM? So this call is really about the roofing business in general, rather than like directly to promote ProLine. So I'm just gonna drop a link to our YouTube that has a bunch of demos that can go through all the different features and how things are different. And then if you want to schedule a live call with the sales team, the ProLine sales team, I'm dropping that link as well. So that's going to be, I just did that in the Q&A section, but I don't know if everyone can see that. So let's put this in the chat as well. Okay. So those links are in the chat. All right. And then Brandon also asks, what's the most challenging type of roof to work on and why? In regards to layers, pitch, material.
I think so. We've had the most. So I'll say this. Obviously, mansard, really steep, slate, like that. Those all suck. They're all difficult to work on. But the ones where we have the most trouble as far as callbacks and having issues after the fact are low slope commercial steel frame metal buildings. So you guys have seen them. They're the warehouse looking buildings. You know, the roof's relatively flat. It's got a little pitch, but it's relatively flat. They're all metal. In the inside, they're, red iron steel frame buildings. And then you're running your screws through your metal roofing right into metal purlins. Man, those things suck. They move a ton. So they're very, metal already moves quite a bit. But then the buildings, everything's spaced. Like the purlins are 4 foot on center. If you walk on one, they just move. Like you can feel them shifting around. So the screws have tendencies to back out. So you put one on, 6 months later, you get your first phone call that's got 3 leaks. You go address it. 2 months later, you got 4 different leaks in different areas. Like it just never ends. So we have completely eliminated that from our service. We will not do it. You can put standing seam on, which we will do that. But what we found for those type of buildings that really, really works well is putting EPDM or TPO, a membrane type roof system on it. So what we like to do is we buy flute filler is what they call it. So your ribs are, say they're 12 inches apart or 16 inches apart, whatever it is on the old roof. They make foam inserts, it's literally just extruded styrofoam, and they lay in the flats of the metal and come up to the height of the ribs. So you basically get a semi-flat surface, and then we can put ISO board or cover board on top of that. Now we have a perfectly flat working surface that's still got some pitch. And then we glue our membrane or mechanically gear or TPO, whatever. We put our membrane on top of that. You're not worrying about screws backing out. There's no issues. It's definitely a much more expensive system, but we have had so many issues over the years. We've probably done, I would say, 8 or 10 of those buildings, and half of them have literally just been an ongoing problem. We've got one that's 3 years old that you can almost guarantee once every 3 to 6 months we're going to get a phone call about a leak. Luckily, it's just an empty warehouse. It's the customer has been very good to deal with, but still, we have done everything. We replaced all the screws with bigger screws. We've done everything to that roof, and there's just no good way to get that to stop. Not that we've found anyway. Easy to install, hard to warranty.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Thanks for the question, Brandon. Next question here is from Adam. If you started a brand new company today from ground zero, other than sales reps, what would be your first 1 to 3 hires to help you scale quickly?
I wouldn't even hire a sales rep. I would hire a really good receptionist. That's what I would hire. The best thing as a new owner that you can be doing, there's 2 things you should be doing. Going to all the sales calls yourself, and then promoting the company. So your marketing, things like that, you should be doing a lot of that yourself. The problem with that stuff is it takes a lot of time and a lot of focus, and you want somebody answering those calls and booking your appointments for you. The first thing would be someone that's really good at answering the phone, taking care of that. I think someone that's owner operator can easily sell $3 million a year on their own without any additional sales reps.
Yeah. Yep. You got to stay lean. Leaner the better.
Yeah.
And then as far as there's lots of options for receptionists too. I know you have somebody local, correct, Scott?
Yes. Yep.
I think we've talked about this before. This is some of it is market dependent. Like you, in some, you felt like that was important for your markets, but if you were in another market, like maybe a major city or something, would you have been open to having like a receptionist overseas or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we tried that for a while. We got hit with a storm, and the receptionist I had at the time, she just couldn't keep up. At that time we were getting like 200 phone calls a day. It was unbelievable. We'd never get a storm here, so like when it does happen, everybody's roof's bad, So anyway, we hired 3 VAs through SMA, and they were fantastic. But the little bit of language barrier, accent stuff did cause some problems. But if we were in a bigger city where it's a little bit more diverse, 100%. Like I don't think you'd have any issue having good success with that.
Yeah, SMA support is awesome, but that is like the one drawback. And the thing is, like, they're not even. It's just that you can tell they're not local.
Right. Well, just like if you're down in
great
Georgia,
English.
yeah. If you're down in Georgia or Louisiana, and everybody's got the strong Southern accent or whatever, like if it's a local guy answering the phone or not, right? Like it's not real hard to tell. So yeah, I think that there is a degree of that makes a difference. I still would probably, if it was my first hire, I would probably still hire an in-house receptionist because it's someone that can help you. Like there's someone that's local that could, run some material to a job site in a bind, or could, there's other tasks that person could definitely help with and still probably efficiently answer the phone.
Yeah. And you can also potentially kind of use that person as a bit of an executive assistant early on as well. Have them maybe monitor your email, organize your calendar,
Yep,
interface with suppliers, like send out orders. Like there's a lot of things. If you get someone smart that's willing to like just step in wherever, that can be super valuable early on.
for sure.
So, um, cool. Thanks for the question, Adam. Brandon asks, how do you calculate proper intake and exhaust ventilation for complex roof systems? Do you have to measure airflow accurately?
So yeah, I think so. But most of the major manufacturers will do that for you. Most of them have um, a calculator on their website, or you can submit an Eagle View or a GAF quick measure to the manufacturer, and they can give you proper ventilation specs. We typically do it if it's really cut up, or if they're putting power vents in, then we'll do it that way. But typical roofs, we're installing ridge vent 95% of the time. That's what we like. We think it's most efficient. And so typically we'll go through and just ridge vent the entire roof, and make sure that they got proper ventilation at the eaves. I'm not telling you it's the perfect calculation, but it's usually really close.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the questions, guys. We have time for maybe one more question. If somebody's got something for us, we can finish with one of ours. But anything else you guys would like to run past us today? Let me see if I can find something in our list that would be good to end on.
We'll have to find you a barber here soon.
My hair is getting a little, I'm trying to grow it out, but it's getting a little wild. I don't know. I might not be able to do it. Uh, yeah, all the questions I got here are kind of big new topics. Um, uh, how about this? How should I? We'll see if anybody has any other questions. Okay. How should as a roofing contractor, how should I collaborate with other trades people to cross promote? Do you have any tips or
Yeah.
strategies
Oh
for
yeah,
that?
absolutely. We do a lot of it. That's more of the organic stuff I've been preaching. Doesn't cost you anything, to help out your buddies that are in other service trades. So yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the networking groups come in, the dinners, all that stuff that you go to for all your local events. But yeah, I mean, we don't I don't think we do a good enough job with it, but we've got a network of all subs, plumber, electrician, heating, cooling, um, excavating, uh, just home repair, all that stuff, landscaping, a tree guy. Man, I got a tree guy that sends me work all the time, and I always refer his business. We don't track it internally well enough. We really should. But you make those relationships with all those other different types of contractors, and you just be sure to always recommend them and try to let them know, keep it in mind. Like Vince, the tree guy that I'm friends with, he always makes sure to shoot me a text, let me know, hey, so and so should be calling you here in just a bit, about some damage she had. She had a tree fall in her house. So I know Vince is always looking to help promote us, and so I make sure to always do the same for him. So, like I said, I think we could track a little bit better and probably do some things better. But overall, that's a huge way to promote your business. That's free.
Yep.
So
Build the network. Um, All right. Well, let's wrap up there. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for all the questions. Really appreciate it. It's great hanging out with you guys, and we'll see. And yeah, great group of people here. I was a little worried because we changed the time to Mondays instead of Wednesdays, but thanks you all for joining on a Monday, and yeah, so we'll see everybody next week.